Hello, and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast. This is episode number 48. My name is Joe Franco, and the long-awaited, discussed topic I'm going to go over, and that is, how long should my prep be? This is multi-layered, multifaceted, and I can probably talk for hours about this. But I typically try to keep everything within 20 minutes. So when you're listening to your cardio, you can blast it out. So we'll see how this one goes. As you know, and I've mentioned before in my podcast, that it's a conversation. I really don't write down any notes because I don't want to seem too robotic, whereas sometimes people are. I'm going to try to slow my pace down because when I get excited, I start talking fast and just go and ramble. So it's a topic that I get often, as you know. It's something that every coach has to deal with when a first-time competitor says, I want to compete, when should I compete? But I also want to address to those who have some years behind their belt as far as weight training and time, because sometimes they're not sure. So I'm going to start with the more experienced lifters and work my way down. Only because I think it'll be easier that way, and then I get to hold on to you. Now, let me just start off by saying that anyone can compete. You've heard me say that before. Anyone can sign up for a show, no matter how they look like, and whatever their goal is. If it's just a step on stage after losing some weight, so be it. If that makes you happy, I have no issue with that at all. And I think the one podcast that you can listen to, and adjacent to this one, is number 35, where I cover what does it take to be a competitor, and I talk about the mentality end of it a little bit more rather than the preparation and time. All right. So you take someone who has been competing for a number of years. They have, let's say, 5+ years or even greater, maybe 8 to 10 years of weight training or more. Typically, that person has the experience. They've stepped on stage. They know what the whole psychological breakdown is. They know about all the prep as far as tanning, signing up for a show, all the intricacies of everything. So what is a good time for them to compete? Well, I did a video talking about this type of stuff years ago on YouTube. And I truly believe that once you hit your peak or you're close to muscle maturity, no matter what division, more time in between shows is better. So it's not really a matter of figuring out how much time you need. It's really a matter of giving yourself enough time between shows so you can recover, gain a little bit, and hoping that you will. Again, I'm gearing this towards the natural athlete without the performance enhancing drugs. So if you take someone like me, I've competed since I was 19. And dare I say I'm 50. If I were to compete every year, I would beat myself up, only because I've been weight training for, 30 years, a lot. So your body recovers a little bit slowly. So you want to give yourself time to recover, and then you want to give yourself enough time to prep. So there's really no, only because that more advanced person is more in tune with their body. They know if they need 3 months, 4 months, 6 months to lose the body fat slowly to maintain the muscle mass. But my point for that lifter, that weight trainer person who's been at it for a while, you want to give yourself enough time between shows. You don't want to be banging them out one after another because the progress is just not going to be there. It's just going to be harder on your body. Now, I do have people that come to me now as a coach in time for prep that are at the pro level. No matter what the division is, they go on their own for 6 months. They'll compete. They'll go on their own for a year, and then they may want to compete a year after that. So it's been 2 to 3 years in between, and then they'll come to me. And typically their prep can be anywhere between 3 to 6 months. all depending upon how much weight they possibly gained. Now, that's going to be a key factor here as far as the length of your prep, how much body fat you need to lose. So the more advanced person, since they're more in tune with their body, when I work with them and they're within reason, what I call striking distance, maybe a female of 8 to 12 pounds of their last contest prep, or a male bodybuilder, maybe 15 to 20 pounds, we can use those 6 months and really dial it in and nail it, only because I have experience with them or they're just more in tune with their body. They know what to expect. They don't have to worry about all the little details when it comes to prep and stuff. So that's the more advanced lifter. The key takeaways is that if you've been competing, say, over a 5-year period, maybe 5 to 10 shows under your belt, you want more time in between shows to allow your body to recover, to allow to possibly grow a little bit more. And then when you prep, you can probably get away with a shorter prep, only because you're more in tune with your body, as long as you didn't gain a ton of weight. So then you take the intermediate group, the people who are, the ones who maybe have been weight training, 4 to 7 years seriously, where they got a good grasp, they've maintained and they've built their body, but they know they haven't reached their peak yet. Again, they're very similar to the more advanced group because they have those shows under their belt, whereas they may not, need the long prep that some people do, as long as they didn't really gain a ton of weight or do anything stupid. But I'm working with a fellow now who did gain a lot of weight in between his last 2 shows that he did 2 years ago. Not really his fault. He had a lot of life stuff, but he's smart enough to realize, what, we need to let my body decide instead of me picking that date, because his habits as far as exercise and diet are on point, and it's just a matter of time. So we together agreed with, let's just see how your body responds. Let time be our friend, because, making progress is great, but sometimes putting that goal will put more unnecessary pressure on you. So again, it's a variable. There's a lot of little things that go on, even with the person who is an intermediate bodybuilder as far as competing. So again, it's just one of those things you got to play on. All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty, to the beginners. And this is really the bulk of my podcast, what I'm going to discuss. A beginner to me is someone who maybe has been weight training for a year. It can even be non-serious, to 3 or 4 years. They've gained a little bit of muscle. They like to see how their body, they like seeing how their body changed. They're encouraged, and now they want to make that goal of competing because they think they've built up enough muscle. Now, that is something that we'll talk about greater right now, where sometimes when someone comes to me and they're like, Joe, I want to compete in 6 months. And they'll say under questionnaire, I've been weight training for 6 months. Well, I often will say, well, how about if we organize your weight training and let's see what your body can do before we start slamming it and reducing calories and everything. Some people love the honesty. They love the truth. Some are like, well, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to find another coach that will let me compete in 6 months. Again, it depends on the person. It really depends on what makes you happy. But as a coach, I want to see if I can get the most out of you in the shortest amount of time, only because you're going to be even happier. And it's just a good fit instead of me lying to you and saying we can do this, that, and that. So again, for that person that has been not weight training as long, I hate to cut off the possibility of growth just to step on stage. But some are super strict and they want to say, hey, I want you as my coach because I've heard great things and I want to compete, in 6 months. So then we'll go for it. But if I have the full say, a beginner really needs to give themselves more time to compete. And you're probably all waiting for me to give some number of weeks or months. If you are within striking distance and have good amount of muscle, meaning that you're strong, an indicator, you look good, people notice, your build in the gym, significant others notice how much progress. You really don't have a ton of body fat to lose. Again, male, if you're within 15 pounds or maybe, you carry that body weight, you got a little abs showing, or a female, same idea, then I would say 4 to 6 months. That is enough time to lose the body fat slowly and, to look good on stage. So for that person that's sort of set up already in a good spot, 4 to 6 months. And I would err on the side of caution of saying 6 months, only because there's so many other psychological things going on as far as, what to expect for the show, the pressures of this and that, dieting, all those little things can play a mental and tougher role on one. So that's why I think more times the better, because you ease into things. You allow your body to adjust, your mind to adjust. I did a whole podcast on don't make it bigger than what it seems. When you reach that attitude of letting it, just making it daily habits, you train, you eat a little bit less, so therefore it's just a walk in the park. That is not going to be accomplished with a 12-week prep, okay? Only because there's so much can be going on. It depends on the mentality of you as a person, where if you're a strong person and just, nothing bothers you, then a shorter prep may be doable as long as you're in striking distance and you have a good amount of muscle. But when we start something new, we become more nervous about it or excited. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But I also feel that you don't want to put extra pressure on yourself. And the great equalizer is giving yourself more time. So that 4 to 6 months is ideal. I give you another example. I have a bikini competitor who hired me in the spring. She has all the aspirations to compete, in the fall, which is next weekend actually. And she nailed it. She did it. She didn't really have a weight issue. She wasn't carrying any extra body fat. So what we first focused on was bringing up her metabolism, learning how much food she can take in. And I think we doubled it. I'm not lying. 175 grams of carbs to begin with. We went up to close to, 350, and then additional 25 grams of fat. She was a macronator. She was just taking food in, building her body. And this was the example that I was given earlier, where you don't want to cut it too short. But there comes a point that you want to shit or get off the pot. And we decided that, all right, let's cut a little bit. And now her body's responding beautifully. And she's going to freaking nail it. She's going to look the best that she ever has. She belongs on stage. She still has room to grow and get bigger. That's, something that we all do, only because she's only been weight training for a couple of years. And we've been together since, April or so. So it's not that long, about 6 months. So that's an example that she was in a good spot to begin with. And she gave herself enough time to develop the mentality of handling the journey of contest prep. Now, most of these shows, you've probably heard me say this dozens of times, is filled with newbies, meaning they never stepped on stage before. Their goal is to look good on stage because they have that goal of competing as a reward to themselves. I will sometimes, if they give me the sign and they not convince me, but if they say, you know what, Joe, I just want to go for it. I understand, I could look better if I give myself more time, but I don't want to wait. All right, if they can handle that, and maybe they may not get the best placement, and they convince me of that, where I believe them and they're being honest, then I will take them on, as long as their body's responding and they make that progress. Now, sometimes bodies don't respond as quickly as what you may see, in social media, only because social media is just a highlight reel. So when people decide that route, it's my job, so they're comfortable with the process, with the allotted time that they're giving themselves, but also going to be comfortable and be secure if they finish in fifth place out of 5 people. That's part of the process also. Because again, I let them know up front that, you know what, say the guy's name is Bill. I'm like, you know what, Bill, you're doing great. You're making progress. If we had another 3 months, you're going to come even in better because you're trending in the right direction. And they'll say, well, Joe, you know what, I want to do the show. Then we can reevaluate. And if they do the show, they don't do well, only because they know more time is better and they didn't give themselves enough time and want to continue, then it was the right decision because it's a learning experience and they built upon that. I'll take a sip of coffee here. So there's so many facets as I'm going through, and there's so many layers. So still to talk about the new person, again, 4 to 6 months, more time is better. Okay. I have people signing up with me now, and it's October, that want to compete next spring. So that could be 6 to 8 months, depending on when they want to compete. And to me, if they are in decent shape to begin with, they're going to do great things. Okay. Now you're saying, well, Joe, you're favoring more time the better, so why wait even longer? Well, yeah, you could, but at the same time, if you're new to the game and you compete and maybe slow down the progress because of your calorie deficit, you know what? You're still going to grow. Then I would put my foot down and say, listen, you know what? You're not going to compete in the fall. For example, someone who hires me now that competes in May, we maybe try to do a couple shows within that month. But then I would say, no, you know what? Let's now give it a full year working together, rebuilding your metabolism without getting out of control, focusing on the weight training, getting stronger, building the body, keeping yourself within striking distance. So after another year working together, you're going to come in that much better because you had the experience and you built up everything mentally and physically. So it'll be a smooth coasting ride in. So that's really the approach that I like to take for those who are eager to compete, get the experience, but then put my foot down and say, you know what, you need more time in between, because typically they'll get the bug, the competitive bug, and they want to kick ass and blow that last physique out of the water. So that pretty much talks about that type of person. Now, there's a lot of different variables here I probably didn't cover. I just was, again, having a conversation with you who is listening, and hopefully I brought some things out. But let me review, and I may even throw some other things in there that pop in my head as I discuss this in greater detail. So you take the person who's been weight training for a really long time. As a coach, typically you can count on that they're going to be in decent shape, obviously, because they've competed before, they have the experience, they have the muscle, and they just need that second pair of eyes, the accountability, and we can swing it within 3 months, 4 months. Obviously, more time is better, but you want the time in between shows. That is something that I preface a lot. You take the intermediate type person who's been weight training 4 to 7 years, who have a few shows under their belt, very similar to the more advanced person, but we know as a coach and a client that you will continue to grow and build muscle. So that is why the time in between is important. So you're not beating yourself up and competing, say, every single year, one after another. Because, you can do that a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 years in a row, but then I highly suggest to take a 2-year break. Only because you're not allowing you that potential to come out, for the intermediate competitor who's done a few shows with an average of 4 to 7 years of good weight training in. As far as the prep, again, for those two people, the intermediate and the advanced, if you are in decent shape and your body responds quickly, then you can get away with, the shorter amount of time of 3 to 4 months. But now here's the big but. If you are a person that's competed before, immediate, intermediate, and or advanced, and has gained a necessary amount of body weight, went off the diet, meaning that you just blew it out, you're 20 to 30 or 40 pounds above contest weight that you did before, and that could be for male and female, then I'm telling you right now, and if you're still listening, that you're not going to be ready in 3 to 4 months. I'm now talking about 6 months to a full year of prep, and that goes towards the beginner. If I have a beginner, someone who maybe competed only 2 or 3 times, and they were really lightweight, they look great, but then is carrying that 30, 40 extra pounds, you're not going to reach your goal in 6 months, okay? Only because it's too hard on your body. Who knows what your diet habits were like, if you did any yo-yo dieting, trying different or crazy things, and your metabolism is screwed up because of that. Therefore, we would take a slow approach on building your metabolism back up, learning what your caloric ceiling is without gaining unnecessary body fat. That can be, that can take 4 to 6 months doing that alone, minimal, and then giving yourself a good 6 months in a deficit, slow and controlled, so your body will hold on to muscle mass as much as possible. And that goes for beginners too. When the beginner who might have to lose a lot of weight, they have some muscle or not much, yes, more time is better. I like to learn what their body can handle before we work that deficit in, only because, again, for natural bodybuilding, the biggest and most important thing is holding on to that muscle that you have, okay? And if you don't have a whole lot of muscle and you got a lot of body fat to lose, then that's why you need more time and not think about going in a caloric deficit and prepping. So that is that thing that I like to discuss often with first-time competitors, only because I don't want their hopes to get so high where like, oh, I want to compete. My girlfriend did it, but I need to lose 50 pounds, and I see pictures. I'm like, yeah, you got some decent weight to lose. So let's not really, the competition is a goal, but let's get you healthy first and put you in a good spot mentally and physically within striking distance. And that can take 4 to 6 months. And then we can press the gas pedal down and focus on the deficit and push it through. All right, I'm hitting that 20 plus mark. So I'm hoping this has been helpful. I mean, I know I rambled again. I thought I was not going to. Hopefully I put some stuff out there that makes sense to you guys, especially if you're a first-time competitor. It is, competing is awesome. It is all about the journey. It's icing on the cake when you step on stage. But the biggest takeaway is that give yourself enough time to learn the ins and outs of competing, through your coach, through your friends, or the people that you train with. Do that. Have the confidence that you have built up your body enough and that you gave it enough time to build your body before just thinking about losing body fat. Because, again, it's not a weight loss contest. It's bodybuilding. It's building your body and then showing it off with losing body fat, not the other way around. So the other takeaway is, besides giving yourself enough time, embrace it, okay? Because you want to have a good first showing. If you're the type of person that is competitive, you want to listen to your coach and trust them, all right? Instead of being like, you know what, this isn't working out. You're not, I just, it happens. Clients come and go. There's not good fits, but sometimes we may not see eye to eye. But if you have the trust and you did your research in a coach, then it will be a nice journey and you're going to be grateful and you're going to feel good and proud about yourself. All right. I'm going to definitely cut this one off now. So thank you guys for listening. If you have any suggestions for a future podcast, let me know. I think I'm going to bang out a few podcasts about my current training that I discussed a couple weeks ago because I'm loving this 3-day split. And the leg workouts alone have been not totally different, but the mindset's been different. And I want to share with you probably within a few days, the type of leg training that I've been doing. So again, if any suggestions, hit me up. Interested in coaching or any posing classes or one-on-one posing or doing my show coming up, reach out to me, fitfranco@verizon.net, and follow me on all the social media stuff, guys. Take care.